It's great to see your faces in these little boxes. I miss you so much face to face. And then those of you whom I haven't met, who somehow have found our a little corner of the world, it's wonderful to welcome you too. It's lovely to have you here. Here in these kind of really difficult, troubling times in our city, state, country, and world. And we may wonder what we can do, how we can serve the world at this time. How can we heal? How can we heal ourselves, where we live, the earth and its great suffering, and the people? You know, I think it's helpful to remember that the English word heal derives from the Old English halen, to make whole. Wholeness. Out of many to gather and make one. One earth, one peoples, taking care of one another. Healing the casteism, healing poverty, the stories of that terrible fire in Lesbos, the fires on the west coast of this country, the racism that we find here in our own city, in our own country, and pervasive in the world, almost throughout time. And the ravaging of the planet. We can ask ourselves, why? Why is this happening? It's almost as if, particularly in this country, but certainly in Europe and Asia, there's fear and hostility of one against the other. And of course, I participate, and no doubt you do too, separating into sides, into our own tribe. We have to be careful with that phrasing of tribe. The cries of tribalism come from the right as well as the left. Sometimes it seems like we have to be so careful with the words that we use. Even our sincere efforts to understand, to question, are filled with pitfalls, unintended meanings. It makes some of us want to just retreat and hide. But is that right? Of course, it's distressing to meet the anger and fear of others. And yet we do need to listen. And we do need to meet the arguments and points of view of others. We need healing. How can I help? How can I offer something to this healing, to this world that's burning and suffering? We need to question, to listen, to care for our community and the world. How do we heal the suffering? Is a question I ask myself every day. So naturally, is there a teaching from the Zen tradition that can help us at this time? What does the old wisdom and meditation tradition offer us today that will hold us and guide us with healing and energy. I think this month's koan from our 2020 Path class offers a way of approaching this troubling time. This year we're using Roshi Shishin-Wick's version of the Book of Equanimity. It's a different translation that many of you know from Cleary's Book of Serenity. It's really important, just as it's important to listen to the other political side, it's important to listen to the different translators. Otherwise, we might get stuck in the very literature that's about not getting stuck. We might get caught in, oh, this is the way to understand this. So Shishin's version comes from the Japanese translation of the Chinese and then the English translation of the Japanese, whereas Cleary's comes directly from the Chinese. So it's kind of different style translation. And the koan is Tozan's illness, which is case 94. And it starts with this very interesting preface. The inferior don't criticize the superior. The mean don't move the noble. Although one has self-control and follows others, one cannot burden the heavy by means of the light. When the four elements are maladjusted, how does one attend and nurture? So the preface is asking a hard question. It's talking about the relation of one to many, me to the world outside of me, New York State to the United States, this country to all the countries, this planet to the cosmos. So this heavy by means of the light, is kind of abbreviated in Zen translation language as absolute truth and its relation to the individual, to the relative truth. Today, it's about my needs and the needs of others. My needs and the needs of others. And the question that it asks at the end of the preface is, how does one attend? How does one take care and nurture? Or we might say, how can we help our vast and suffering world today? How can I, one person, avoid casting blame and anger and instead offer healing and comfort to the network of life around me? How can one individual find a skillful means to serve the world in crisis? So the koan itself is attention. Tozan was ill. A monk asked, Osho, you're sick. Is there someone not sick? Tozan answered, yes, there is. The monk asked, does the one who is not sick look after you? Tozan replied, this old guy is able to look after others. The monk asked, Osho, how about when you look after others? And Tozan said, then the having of sickness is not seen. This is great. It strikes me a little impertinent, this unnamed student goes up to his dying teacher and asks him to explain his illness, right? So determined to get the answer that he's willing to go up to this fellow who is so ill and ask is kind of, is there someone who's not sick? Is there some part of you that is not sick? What is this sickness? And so patiently, Tozan, yes, there is. And so the student asked the pivot of the koan, does the one who is not sick look after you? So there you can imagine two different interpretations, two different scenarios. One is the ordinary way of looking at reality. Is someone around here taking care of you? Is there someone coming in taking care of you? Or you could see it as a dharma question, as in, what is it that looks after you? What is it that looks after you? And Tozan responds, actually, this old monk is able to look after others. Actually, this old monk is able to look after others. Turning around, this sick old monk is taking care of others. And the student asks, what is that like, that caring for others? And Tozan gives the teaching for the koan. Then the having of sickness is not seen. Then when you're caring for others, the having of sickness is not seen. When Tozan cares for all who are sick, who are suffering, then his own illness fades and he experiences himself in the fullness of that moment. You know, it's so easy to get lost in our dream, in our own private world. And right now, when so many of us are quite isolated, it's very easy to kind of make the net around us very small. And we might forget our relationship with everything that is. When you're sick, oh, I've been personally having a lot of sciatica, so it could be like all about my sciatica. Huh? Will that make me forget the suffering around me, around the world? Can I see it as, oh no, I must take care of them, of the others. I am able to look after the others. In order to care for that one, whether that one is myself, my loved ones, my city, my country, my earth, the call is wide, is full. And it asks us to care, to seek the true, the just, not helping, as in me above taking care of you below, but working with, not condemning, but supporting change for the benefit of all. In a way, that's what Vimalakirti taught, if you recall, in the Vimalakirti Sutra. He lay sick in his bed, and various disciples and bodhisattvas came up to him to gather around him, and he was asked why he got sick. And he said, it is because all beings are sick. I am sick. If all beings are relieved of sickness, then my sickness will be mended. Such a vision of the world. Also, just this week, Gary Peacock, a wonderful jazz bassist, died. You probably remember him as part of Keith Jarrett's trio. Wonderful musician. And in his obituary, there was a part that talked about an interview with him in which he was asked, how much are you willing to give up to play this music? And he replied, I don't think it can work if you still have an agenda. If you feel you still need to prove something musically, that's not the point. It's just about the music. So you're going to serve that. You're going to serve that. Not yourself or somebody in the audience, not the critics or the reviewers. It's just the music. It's just the music. So you're going to serve that, not yourself or somebody in the audience, not the critics or the reviewers. It's just the music. It's just the world we live in. It's not about our side being right, but taking care of all of it. And that's what we're called to serve. Each of us in our own way. That is whom we care for. Be it the nervous neighbor down the hall, the uneasy worker, the family member with different views, even the confused and fearful QAnon followers who are seeking to understand the world, who are trying to find a frame. Who is that one? We seek justice. We seek truth. And we don't see ourselves as helping, but rather working with. Thus, we come from the same position that Gary Peacock's talking about, serving the music. We come from a position of being part of connecting, not condemning, but supporting, caring for others. That's the music we serve. We can use our own illness, our own fear, our experience of suffering as an opportunity to realize the meaning of all of life, the purpose of our lives, and the command to serve it all. I have a gatha to end this. Oh, woe, oh, woe. It feels as if my world is shattering. It's time to stop, to look around, to open my heart and offer healing to all the parts, inside and out, that are struggling in this suffering world. So I also want to recommend that for some of you who are struggling with many of the racist issues that are rising for us, we have a new program starting next week, starting on Saturday afternoon, called White Work on Racism, Turning the Light Inwards. It promises to be a very powerful way for each of us to study our privilege. The class will be taught by, I say taught because it won't be one way at all. It'll be quite an inspiring way of working with three artists. Yuka, Kyogen, and Joran will be running this workshop every other week on a Saturday afternoon. So I encourage you to look online for that. And then before I end, I was so taken by our e-group, several people posted this beautiful poem by Maya Angelou for us all to think about as we mourn the passing of Ruth Ginsburg. It's called When Great Trees Fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. She was such an inspiration. I'm sure many more wise people will come forth now and support the wonderful teachings of Ruth Ginsburg. So have a good morning.